Welcome to video 2, part 2 of a review of rhetorical devices within the subject or the topic language in syntax. These are rhetorical devices you might come across on the AP Language multiple choice, or you might find handy when analyzing a passage for a rhetorical analysis essay. If you're just coming in, look up in the playlist where you missed part 1. Otherwise, you're only going to have just a partial list. But let's get into part 2 of language and syntax. Number 53 is brachiology, an abbreviated expression or choppy statement, almost like a telegraph, is the definition of brachiology. Like when you're in trouble with someone and they go, you, me, talk now. Or instead of saying good morning, someone just says morning, and you know it's short for good morning. An author can use this for a couple of effects. Superficially, it can make something more concise or more brief. Less words can get a point across more quickly. But depending on what is said, it can convey tone and mood, such as anger, frustration, or some other emotion. Number 54 is digression. A digression is a temporary departure from the main subject that someone is speaking or writing about. A lot of us have heard this word before, like, well, I digress. Someone might digress to give background information, to tell a related story, kind of like that reminds me of a time kind of saying, right? That moment where you want to include some other information. This should be familiar to students who try to get their teacher to digress towards the end of the class so he or she forgets to pass out the homework. You know what I'm talking about. In addition to the uses I mentioned, right, an author might use a digression to develop ethos or logos or pathos if their writing is lacking one of those facets of the rhetorical triangle. They can bring that in with a digression or telling a related story or giving additional information. Number 55 is freight train. So this is a way to grammatically structure your ideas where there's a sentence with 3 or more short independent clauses that are connected by conjunctions. It's going to have a feeling of being kind of an unusually long connected sentence. You know, like a train has cars connected. So it could sound something like this. I desired to have a handle on rhetorical devices, so I studied various YouTube reviews, and flashcards were stacked on my desk, and I used Quizlet as a backup on my phone. So you can see with that one sentence, right, you can kind of pile up a lot of information like a catch-all, but you also give a sense of weight or urgency to a message, like all of those ideas are connected kind of as one big concept, and they have to be looked at or dealt with as a whole. Number 56 is called inversion, but it also goes by anastrophe. Inversion or anastrophe is a grammatical choice where normal word order is switched, like putting the adjective after a noun, like it was a victory sweet, or a verb before the subject, like shocked I was. But an anastrophe is changing the order of a single word. It sounds a little like Yoda talk in some instances, so it's not used a lot because it can seem a little odd, especially if you talk in a Yoda voice. It would be used sparingly for emphasis for an idea or a thought to stand out. But what if more than one word is out of order? What if it's a whole phrase or something like that? Is there a word for that? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's the next word. Number 57 is hyperbaton. Hyperbaton, I think. That's how you say it. It's anastrophe on steroids where multiple words or phrases can be changed from their normal order. Wise you will be if you listen. An example? There is for you. So same reason as anastrophe. You don't want to use it a lot. It can be used sparingly, but it gives a reason for the reader to pause and gives an emphasis to a statement because it's a little unusual compared to normal syntax. Number 58, hypotaxis. This is a grammatical construction in one sentence where one clause is made to be subordinate to another in order to show a relationship. So that gives you a clue to the purpose of this, right? If there's a relationship being explained, it could be a cause and effect or logically connected or in a sequence, like a time sequence. Hypotaxis is one way to organize that. So here's an example. It was my favorite class because I love the subject matter and the teacher didn't take herself too seriously. So in that sentence, it was my favorite class. There's the main idea. And then there were following clauses subordinated by the word because and also with the and that give logical reasons for that statement. So it can help an author kind of expand and give reason to a main idea. Number 59 is parataxis. So some people say parataxis contrasts with hypotaxis because with hypotaxis you have the main clause and then you have subordinating clauses underneath that. Is kind of like a hierarchy. Well, there is no hierarchy in parataxis. These sentences connected together have equal weight. This is a stylistic choice because technically sentences connected with just a comma and no conjunction are run-on sentences grammatically. A simple example would be, I came, I ordered, I ate, and I just offset those with commas. They all have equal weight that way. So why do this? Well, for one, it can pile up thoughts together, gives more power to sentences that way. It can make something seem in rapid sequence, almost emphasizing the importance or connections between the ideas because you're not giving one more importance than other. It was important that I came and that I ordered and that I ate all together. Number 60 is parallelism. Parallelism as a decision in structure is to have similarly grammatical structure in a pair or series of related words, phrases, and clauses. Think of easy come, easy go. Parallel, right? Easy blank, or like father, like son. So parallelism is one way to achieve balance within a phrase or a sentence. Antithesis from list 1 is a type of parallelism. So parallelism can have several purposes, right? It can contrast, it can be a type of juxtaposition of ideas, but it can also underscore or drive home a message or idea because it adds layers to something being explained or argued. Number 61 is parentheses, and I know that is a punctuation mark, so if you know what parentheses are used for, you do kind of have an idea of what this means as a rhetorical device, but you're not limited to using parentheses because parentheses can also be used with dashes or commas or brackets to achieve this as a rhetorical device. So it's technically a form of hyperbaton where there's a word or a phrase or a whole sentence that is an aside in the middle of another sentence, which of course is going to interrupt the flow of the sentence itself. So here's an example. His comments, dash, which were meant as a joke, dash, sounded rude to the outsider. So I added in the phrase which were meant as a joke as a parentheses, and in that case it was to add more information and kind of qualify what was being said in the sentence. A parentheses could also be used to give a related thought or to express a contrasting idea, and it has a lot of other functions as well. Number 62 is periodic sentence. Periodic sentences contrast with loose and cumulative sentences because in this case the main clause comes last, so there are dependent clauses and phrases in front of it. So in this way, the sentence isn't complete until the end of it. So an example would be something like this. Because I worked late and forgot to set my alarm, I didn't make it to first period. So there's a buildup of information before the result or the conclusion is given. You don't know the result that I didn't make it till first period until the end of the sentence. So authors might use this to build suspense or build interest to keep some information back, but it can also go over reasons or thoughts and then give the conclusion to those thoughts. So it does have some useful functions. The last one in the series is polysyndeton. If you remember a syndeton, which is where you take out conjunctions, polysyndeton puts them in with no commas between items in a series. So I think polysyndeton is useful and fantastic and interesting and quite rhythmic and often becomes a little bit wordy. Why use this? Well, it adds emphasis to an idea beyond just a list, right? Because it gives kind of a compounding, hammering home kind of effect. You're just adding more things to it and kind of creating this sense of importance. That concludes the second part of a list of rhetorical devices under the heading or the topic of syntax and language. And so I hope those are useful for you. I appreciate you taking the time to check this out, and hopefully you found it helpful. It would be awesome if you could subscribe and tell people about the channel. Here is the playlist of the other rhetorical devices. Here's some writing workshops that I have put together that will help you, with some of the writing that you might be doing. And then here's just something for fun, because we all got to relax sometime. Check it out, please. Until next time.